From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. Hey, James, how are you today? I'm glad we're back for another exciting episode.
I'm doing great. It's always be great to be back, and we even have a guest, which makes it even better.
Absolutely. I'm pleased and very excited to introduce our guest today, somebody that I have gotten to know for many years, and we've become close friends because we have similar businesses in the independent programming space. And I'll let him get into those details. He's Marc LaVecchia from BMA Software Solutions. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate the invitation.
Well, thanks for being with us. And we would like to do with our audience, since our audience is programmers, but it's also people that want to learn a little bit more about programmers. So it's kind of the extension of programming. We look at this as some way of building community around programmers, but also educating the industry a bit. So I wanted to give you a few minutes just to talk a little bit about your background in AV, because you've worked in a lot of different places, and also highlight the fact that your background, although is you are in the programming space, you're not actually a programmer.
Yeah, and that's a little bit unusual in our world, which is, I think, to our benefit. I got started into this business years ago. I was unemployed marketing person in Orlando, Florida. I had no work. I had nothing. I couldn't find work, and it was bad. And I ended up getting an interview with a company in Titusville, Florida called Ampro Projection. And Ampro was making 3-gun projectors, and at the time, these new light valve projectors that were coming out. And I got hired 5 weeks before an Infocom show with new products and new data sheets and new spec sheets, and I had to do the marketing for this entire show. And that was when it started, and it never stopped really after that. Now, this is going back years ago. I want to go back to the point where at that time, Infocom used to have a thing called the shootout, where everybody would have up their displays. And they would, like Gary Kay at one year was the chairman of the shootout, and he would dress in a cowboy outfit, with a hat and a vest and little fake 6-shooters. If you remember that, then you know how long I've been doing this. It's been a long time. From that point, I bounced amongst other manufacturers that are more well known than Ampro, who's gone at this point. But I was at Hughes JVC for a little while, which really created the first real light valve projector. Jumped over to Stewart Film Screen for a bit before I was picked up again, sales marketing for Crestron. And I started working for Crestron about 30 years ago. I was asked to open up their West Coast office. They were getting their butts kicked by AMX, and who was beginning to transition to Panja at the time. And they needed a West Coast presence. So they hired myself and the friend of mine, Barry, as the technical brains of the office. And we started up the Crestron West office about 30 years ago. About 10 years into that, Crestron was expanding greatly, and it wasn't my fit, really. It was getting too big for me. I work better in small spaces, more one-on-one personal, as opposed to opening things up. So I tried to figure out what my next step was going to be. Simultaneously, my buddy Barry, who was there, said, I feel like I'm not fitting in, and I want to try something different. He's a programmer, and I had a front row seat to 10 years of bad programming happening in this industry. And I saw a need there that maybe we could bring a process to programming in the AV world, the commercial AV world, that would help dealers and integrators to be able to be more successful at what they're doing, instead of spending the last 5 days at a job calling us for tech support because they can't get something to work. And that was how it started. It was twofold. Number one, it was see a need, fill a need, right? There was a real need for good programming. And the second part of it was programmers, and we know this, are a special breed of cat. And you can't just work them and work them and work them into the ground, because it's one thing if they're working 12 hours pulling cable. It's another thing if they're behind a desk or down in a basement and they're cold and they've got their laptop and they're working around the clock to make something work. Their brains will melt, man. And you absolutely must ensure that you take care of them. So our first priority when we started BMA was to ensure that this was going to be quality of life first and foremost. We were going to work the hours that we needed to work, but we weren't going to work any harder longer than we had to, unless at some point the job required it. Then we all pedal a little faster, take care of the customer, but we were trying to keep everybody from burning themselves out. And that's really how it got started. And it blew up quickly, because what our industry needed at the time was a process and reliability from programmers. Those are two things they didn't have at the time. Again, I'm going back about 20 years ago that BMA started. Process and reliability. You bring those two things into the equation, and suddenly the integrators and people who have a need, like, this is great. Like, I just lost my guy the other day. He has the code. He can't find his laptop. This is what I'm looking for. Consistency, reliability. And it's 20 years later, and we're just as busy as we've ever been.
Right. And to me, I think that's a real differentiator there, and that's something that really needs to be noted, is that you looked at a need and you addressed the need rather than saying I could just go out because I'm trying to make more money, or I'm trying to do something for myself. It was more so we had principles behind and that drove us to set out the course for this business.
Yeah, 100%. And it started with us with my partner at the time when we sat down and we said, listen, there's a few things we need to make sure we agree on here. Okay. Number one, we never leave a job. Okay. I don't care how bad it gets. I don't know how sideways it gets. You know, even if it's not our fault, we never ever leave our job. Number two, we are 100% honest all the time about what's going on. Number three, we only take the jobs that make sense for us. I don't want to take a job for the sake of cash flow. That's a bad plan. And that's what happens to a lot of programmers. They need something, so they take it and it doesn't work. And so that's been the premise for us. And I will tell you joyfully that after almost 20 years, there's 6 of us. And in all those 20 years, we've had one person who has left us. Everybody else has been with us for this time. And I think that's a testimony to the consistency and the honesty that we push with our customers, that they know they can rely on us day to day, and we're there for them.
James, I'll kind of bring you into this. And one of the things that I know is important when it comes to in-house programming, which seems to be the polar opposite of independent programming, is a lot of the same things. We want to do things right. We want to take care of our clients. We want to make sure that we're reliable, and that there is, I think, also a high degree of care in in-house programming. Hearing what Mark is saying, how do you feel that independent programming is portrayed accurately in the market?
No, I don't think it's portrayed accurately in the market. And the reason why I think Mark hit a really interesting saying, and I kind of would like maybe Mark to explain more. Maybe it could go in our second episode. I'm not sure. But that whole, we schedule our time. We don't work over, like push, work. We know in our industry, AV is last to the table, and AV programming is last. So the time frame to get a job done, especially for an independent programmer, is a very short window. So how do you keep that? Oh, we're not going to work 20 hours in a day when your window is very small. I find that very refreshing that you're doing it. But to me, I think most programming house, and Steve, you could probably correct me if I'm wrong, is more like, okay, you're going to come in at the 10th hour and you're going to be done in the 11th hour.
Yeah.
Because no one understands that programming actually takes a lot of time.
And that's where you lose programmers. That's where you lose them. And what a lot of integrators, they know this, but they don't really pay attention to it as much as they should, is it's one thing if you lose a person. I say lose, they quit or they burn out or whatever. If you're in, and I deal primarily with integrators, but we have worked with some end users in some cases. But here's what we know, that if you have somebody that's pulling cables and building racks and so forth, that's a particular talent, and you can teach that talent pretty quickly and get somebody up to speed. Okay. But you can't teach a programmer how to get up to speed quickly and efficiently. So when you lose a program, you're losing a really important part of your job, especially if it's in the middle of a project and I'm out, and you have to bring in somebody that's to understand from the beginning what's going on. So how do we combat that? First and foremost, anybody that we do business with, we have a sit down from the beginning, and we let them know that we are not just a programming firm. We are built to be the programming department for their company. What that means is we need to be brought in when you begin the sales process. I'm selling this product, I'm selling this job, I'm going to the customer. Here are my basic line drawings, scope of work, bill of materials. How many notes is it going to take you to name this song? And we can come to them with a number. Now I've got a lead. Okay. And this is where it's a little bit different for us because I grew up in sales and marketing. That's a lead to me. And now I follow that lead. I do a proposal and I follow up. How's it going? I got the PO. Great. Place your order for us when you place your order for your hardware. Now I've got 4 to 5 weeks running head start. Let's do submittals on the touch panel. Let's make sure that we have an understanding of the scope of work. Let's make sure that's approved by the customer before you bring me in at the end and say, I just need to make everything work. Half of what we do successfully is program. The other half of what we do successfully is our process. That process is critical. If you're going to bring a programmer in at the end, you're losing money. You're bleeding out money, and you're going to have an unsuccessful project. You bring them in the beginning, the very beginning. Even if you haven't won the job yet, bring me in. I'll sit down with you. We'll go through it. What are the other values to this? Let's take the simple programming out of the equation. I'm going to take this. Here's a project, Mark. Take a look at it. Take a look at it and like, oh, you're not going to put that in there, are you? Why not? Well, we've been having a lot of trouble working with this. And James, if you know, you've had products that they just don't work. Okay. So somebody comes to me and says, I'd like to do this. I have 4 jobs that I can't complete because of this piece of garbage. Do yourself a favor. Find an alternative. I have alternatives that I know work because there are plugins and modules that are built for this that I've already run and tested. And they're like, I had no idea. That's great. You just saved me an extra day, 2 days on a job site trying to commission something. So it's not just programming. It really is a partnership for us. And which is why we deal pretty much with 5 integrators, 6 or 7 extras, but we deal with the same integrators all the time. And so as a result, they may have a customer with multiple rooms that we're constantly working on throughout the year. Or they may have a new customer that has multiple rooms where we can begin to set down the standards for them. But a lot of times what people say is, well, you're the programmer, come on, I'm in a program. And that's really half of it as far as we're concerned. We bring a level of knowledge and testing and experience to help you get your job done, driven by somebody who grew up in the world of sales. And in the world of sales, we live by margin. If we don't make a margin, we lose, we go broke. So how do we protect the margins? Best place to protect margins on any project where programming is involved is get programming in up front, make sure everybody understands how the system's going to work, what your process is, that they accept and buy into your process. And then the next part is, which I know Steve wants to get into, and I think we could dig deeper, is now I'm working with an integrator who has a programmer. What does that look like? Are they upset because I'm doing this job for them? Or are they happy because they don't have time for it, but they're going to have to go in the field to commission it? That becomes now the next leg of our journey, which is a critical part that I think we've gotten pretty good at being able to address. And we can talk about that at some point, but that's now where you've got that merger of you're just a programmer. No, I'm not. I'm an extension of your company. Well, you're going to have to work with my company now in the field. What does that look like? And that becomes the next step to make it successful for everybody.
What's interesting, I think, also is that and I know this because you and I talk a lot, Mark, and you also help the companies that you work with be better. I know that part of what you do, the byproduct of it is that you help them strengthen their companies. So although you come in to offer them programming, you help them to create a system, create a process. You've probably said that 5 or 6 times already, and you help them become a stronger company because they have a way to go about doing things, and perhaps that way will include you for the long haul, or perhaps you've kind of set them off on their course and they're going to be doing things themselves. I mean, we don't know that, but I think that's a very admirable piece that independent programmers do that isn't always recognized.
Well, because in order to survive as an independent programmer, you have to have a process in place. If you don't, you're done. But the integrators don't ever see it that way. Not all. Some of them are very good at it. I don't want to cast a wide net here, but historically speaking, A programmer has been somebody that sits in an office and they get to this job, go to this job site, make this stuff work, and let me know when it's done. Where for us, the process is where the margins are. If you follow our process, I will help you make money. Okay. Programmers don't say that very often, but I say that when I'm starting with a new customer. The challenge for us is that is spoken typically to the principal, to the principals, or maybe the director of project management or whatever, who isn't in the field with the programmers, but he likes what I'm saying. And so I can get that started in the beginning, but in the end, it needs to translate to actually happening in the field and showing them it happening, and then making sure that when we get to the end, that their field engineers and their programmers come back and go, man, that was awesome. It worked. The customer came in, they walked through the system. We knew exactly how it was operating. It was just flawless. We have a happy customer, and 3 more rooms are coming. And that's the point. I have to go back to their bosses and go, how did it go? Ask your team how it went. And when they start to put together the value of protecting their margins and adding profitability to their project through picking the right programming group, it changes their dynamic. And you know what? I may end up not doing any more programming for them, but they will go back to their team and go, hey, did you get a sign off on those touch panels? Did you get approval before you started writing code? Did you send our programmer to the job site before the job was ready for him to commission it? Did you just blow all our money this way? And if we can start that conversation, I'm good too.
It's I think very impressive when companies start to adopt the way you do things and when they're not working with you. And I think that they say that that's the definition of a brand, that it's what people say about you when you're not around. So it's
Yeah.
kind of neat
Well,
in that regard.
and I've been doing this for a long time. And one of the things that I don't fit in with the model of this industry, and I apologize if this sounds more personal than business related. Um, I don't chase ribbons and badges. Okay. I'm not somebody, I've joked to you in the past. You go to Infocom and somebody has their Infocom badge with all the ribbons that are going down and stuff. That's not, what we're interested in doing is being able to educate, improve, elevate, enhance, and build partnerships so that everybody involved walks away and says, that was a good experience. And the reason is because I've been in this industry for so long, it's got such a bad history to it, a bad history to it. And I've always felt like I needed to fix that. Give you an example real quick without burning time. You can't have the code. And, I'm an integrator and I do a big job and the job's done. And they would call me a customer, the customers. They won't give me the code. Okay, call the customer back. If I give them the code, I might lose them, or they owe me $50 or something like that. Like, you can't operate that way. You have to turn the code over all the time. You just have to do it. To me, it's unethical to do anything other than that. You get paid, you turn the code over. If you're going to lose the customer, I promise you, it's not because you're turning the code over. You're going to lose the customer because you sucked at what you did and they want to find somebody else. That's just the truth. And so those are the things, that the perceptions and the realities that for me and our team at BMA, we talk about all the time. Honest, straightforward, be there, help. Even if we're not needed in the situation, if we have information we can share, let's share it. Let's elevate our industry to a better place than its history would show.
Yeah, I like that a lot. James, I wanted to, as we wrap up, just comment on what you had asked before about how do you avoid working people too hard, and how do you avoid doing putting programmers on the hot seat. I could say from my experience too, and Mark and I, we're very specific in the type of work we do and the timeline that we get, and we're very responsible about not overcommitting. So we set a time frame and say we cannot do this in less than this amount of time. If that doesn't work, I'm sorry, we're not the right fit for you. And you have to be disciplined. One of the things that I learned, probably one of the first things that I learned in starting out and on the business side, is how to say no. And and it's really, really hard.
Okay.
I don't, James, because you're in your situation is you're there, right? You are employed by the hospital that's
University.
had
Yep.
the university, excuse me. So you're employed there. So you've got to filter in everything that's coming to you. I don't know. I'm curious. Do you get to say no and have people say, okay, give me your schedule? How does that work for you?
So I'm new here, so I'm over a year, just a little over a year. So everything's pretty new. So yeah, we get to set the tone. Back east, where I used to be, we did 99% of the stuff in-house, all ourselves. I did all the programming. And so the schedule was easy enough for us to work around. Here is, yeah, like just this morning, I actually had a issue and I was working with somebody and they're like, oh, we need to reboot the system. I'm like, nope, we can't. We have classes. We'll schedule that at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So now we're scheduled at 4 o'clock to do it. Because we cannot impact our classes.
Right, right. Everything. See, that's what we get is filtered in a different way to us, but it's the same thing. I need these to be up and running. I can't have these down. And so a lot of times we're just going to tell them, then do yourself a favor. Let's not try to interrupt things right now. Let's do it at a time when it makes sense for us that we could do it properly.
Yep.
We could break something else too. So, um,
That's the key. Breaking out. I always schedule like if I know this should take me 30 minutes, I schedule an hour
right,
because
right.
then I can revert back if I need to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm curious if your situation is like some of the universities we work for that hire us, uh, which is an interesting thing for me because I'm not used to it. The AV techs that work at the universities, um, they refer to their customers as the professors and so forth that use the room. Those are their customers. And
Mhm.
so they kind of have to follow that. Is that you have a similar situation for you where that's your customer, it's their room, so to speak. So you got to make it work for them?
So yes and no. We our faculty members are our users, our students are our users. Those are our customers. But I can't say, okay, this room is tailored to Steve, and then
Okay.
the next room is tailored to Mark. Because Mark, you might be teaching in one room and then another room next set. So our rooms have to be designed and usable by whoever walks in with whatever they're going to do. So it does take a lot of design and prep work and talking to our stakeholders of saying, how is the room going to be used so we can properly design and make sure that we're meeting everyone's need, not just one person.
And you just brought the whole thing full circle, James, because this is what we were talking about in the beginning. If you bring us in, whether it's direct at the university or me as an independent, you bring us in at the beginning and we talk about what the expectations are for the room. Who's using it? How many different people? Is it the same people? What do they expect when they walk in? Do they all look the same way? We break all that down in the beginning. Then when we turn the rooms over, everybody's happy because they got exactly what we told them they were going to get, as opposed to programming something at the end because somebody forgot and I just threw some buttons on a touch panel. Same process, different fields, but same process.
And I think there's a lot more to comment on that, and we'll try to leave the audience wanting more. So I'm going to wrap this one up, and we're going to have Mark back on the next episode. So stay tuned for that. Mark, how could people get in touch with you, learn more about BMA Software Solutions?
Just at our website, bmasoftwaresolutions.com. I'm not a social media guy so much, unless it's football season. But just go to our website. You can find us there.
Excellent. And James, how any closing thoughts, and how could people get in touch with you and learn more about what you're up to?
This is a great conversation with Mark and refreshing hearing from an outside person talking the same way. But as always, you can reach me on Twitter or X at AV_James King, LinkedIn, not there much, but I'm out there. Anything with HEPMA, I'm on there, and Google me, you'll find me.
Excellent. And for me, you can reach me at Steve Greenblatt on social media, and my company Control Concepts at controlconcepts.net. And definitely want to hear what you think about this episode and all of our episodes. So please reach out to us and give us a rating, review, share your favorite episode leave a comment, whatever you please, but we want to hear from you. So please reach out to us and let us know what you think. We're always looking to highlight guests and listeners. So please let us know if you'd like to be part of that. And we're continuing to cover all the aspects of the programming related world in AV. So that's our plan. And with that, this has been Ask the Programmer.